So for like 25 years, the billionaires who basically built our digital world gave us this one unified piece of advice.
Right, the ultimate golden rule, learn to code.
Exactly. Learn to code. But today, those exact same people are telling you to put down the laptop, forget about computer science, and, go read some Shakespeare.
Which is just a massive 180-degree turn.
Welcome to our deep dive. You, or maybe someone you know, are probably staring at a screen right now, quietly trying to figure out how to future-proof your career in an AI-dominated world.
Yeah, because we're all watching artificial intelligence do things today that seemed like pure science fiction, just 12 months ago.
Right. And you're asking yourself what skills you actually need to survive this shift. So today we're unpacking a stack of sources, including this fascinating article that highlights a sudden, massive pivot in career advice coming straight from the tech elite.
And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out if the ultimate career hack for our highly synthetic future is actually, well, the oldest school education imaginable.
It is a genuinely historic pivot because we're watching the people who spent the last few decades laying the bricks of our tech-centric world.
The founders and engineers who literally constructed the digital landscape we navigate every single day.
Yes. They're turning around and waving a giant red flag at the next generation, basically telling them not to follow in their footsteps.
It's the ultimate plot twist, really.
Yeah.
You have the architects of the digital age suddenly sounding like 19th century literature professors.
It's wild. And specifically, we're looking at Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix. He recently made an appearance on the Possible podcast.
Right, speaking with Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and his chief of staff, Area Finger.
Yeah, these are the ultimate Silicon Valley insiders.
Yeah.
And Hastings drops this absolute bombshell about what he would do if he had a young child today.
He said he would absolutely not push them to study computer science.
Right. His exact quote is just staggering. He said, and I quote, "We spent 25 years saying, learn to code. Oops, don't learn to code."
Oops. That is an incredibly heavy word coming from a man whose entire global empire was built on a ridiculously complex foundation of code and algorithms.
Yeah, Netflix is literally all code.
Exactly. And to really grasp how shocking this is, we have to look at the cultural context of the last decade. Because society at large had fundamentally abandoned the humanities.
Oh, completely.
We treated the liberal arts like a quaint relic of the past. The source article points out that as recently as 2023, the New Yorker published this major piece declaring the end of the English major.
And that wasn't just hyperbole, right? Enrollment in liberal arts degrees had absolutely cratered.
Totally cratered.
There was this mass exodus. We had coding boot camps popping up on every corner, government initiatives pushing STEM everywhere.
Yeah, there was this widespread cultural consensus that studying literature or philosophy was basically a one-way ticket to making lattes for the rest of your life.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my immediate reaction is serious skepticism. Hearing a tech billionaire say, don't learn to code right now, it feels like telling someone in the 1920s, right, as the automobile industry is exploding, not to bother learning about combustion engines.
Right, to go study poetry instead.
Exactly. For decades, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math was the undeniable golden ticket. It was the safe path to a six-figure salary, stock options, job security.
It was the smart bet.
So I have to ask, is Reed Hastings just being a bored, contrarian billionaire making edgy statements on a podcast because he can afford to? Or is there a fundamental mechanical shift happening in what work actually means now?
Look, it's a completely fair question. But if we look at the broader landscape, Hastings is definitely not an isolated contrarian here.
Really? He's not the only one.
Not at all. He's part of a growing chorus of tech titans who are all looking at the exact same horizon. The shift they're seeing isn't about technology becoming less important.
Okay, then what is it about?
It's about the nature of how human beings interact with that technology changing on a structural level. Well, think about it. When artificial intelligence reaches a point where it can autonomously take over the heavy lifting of technical tasks.
Like writing the code, debugging the software.
Parsing the databases, exactly. When it can do all that, the economic value of human labor has to migrate.
Yeah.
It can't stay in the technical execution phase because the machine is doing it faster and cheaper.
Wow. And that migration is pointing directly back to the very subjects we've been neglecting. Which brings in Mark Cuban.
Yes. Cuban is fascinating here.
According to the article, Cuban was actually a surprisingly early prophet of this whole dynamic. Way back in 2017, he was speaking to Bloomberg and made this wildly bold prediction.
And 2017 is basically the Stone Age in AI development years.
Right. But he said that in 10 years, there would be a greater demand for liberal arts majors than for programming or engineering majors. He explicitly said English majors of the world should celebrate.
Cuban's exact timeline of 10 years might have been a tiny bit optimistic back in 2017, but the sources show he was entirely directionally right.
Yeah, the trend is real.
And we see this validated by other heavy hitters who are actively shaping this new economy. Take Mike Novogratz, the co-founder of Fortress Investment Group, or Jack Clark, who is the co-founder of the AI company Anthropic.
Both of them are billionaires. And importantly, both of them are former liberal arts majors themselves.
Exactly. And Novogratz actually put his money where his mouth is when it comes to his own family.
Oh, yeah. He has 4 kids who are all getting liberal arts degrees. He stated last year that because of the reading, writing, and critical thinking skills these degrees uniquely provide, they are going to make a massive comeback.
It's a huge bet on those skills.
But it's Jack Clark from Anthropic who really fascinates me here. I mean, he runs one of the most advanced AI labs on the planet.
And because he is building the machines, Clark intimately understands the mechanical reasoning for why this liberal arts comeback is inevitable.
Right, he sees under the hood.
He pointed out to Fortune that AI is taking on an increasingly massive share of our intellectual grunt work. When the machine is doing the heavy lifting of generating the actual code or crunching a massive spreadsheet, the human's role fundamentally transforms.
So what does the human do?
Clark argues that the really important skill becomes knowing the right questions to ask.
That makes so much sense when you think about how AI actually functions. It doesn't have intrinsic curiosity.
Precisely. Artificial intelligence, at its core, is a predictive engine. It is designed to predict the next word in a sequence or find a pattern in a data set.
It doesn't wake up in the morning and wonder why something is happening.
No, it doesn't question the underlying assumptions of the prompt you give it. Clark notes that the human value lies in having the intuition to see what happens when you collide different insights from many different disciplines.
And you develop that specific capability, that cognitive flexibility, by studying literature, philosophy, and history. Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the historical transition from doing complex math on paper to using an electronic calculator.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Before calculators, knowing how to do long division quickly and accurately was a highly valuable, highly marketable skill. You were essentially functioning as a human computer.
Right. Your economic value was tied to your processing speed and accuracy.
Exactly. But once the calculator was invented, the economic value completely shifted. The value wasn't in doing the math anymore. The value was in knowing which numbers to punch into the machine.
Yes.
If AI is essentially a super-powered cognitive calculator that does all of our intellectual grunt work, the liberal arts major is the person looking at the answers and figuring out which equations actually matter to human beings.
That is a perfect framework.
It's the difference between merely generating data and giving that data a perspective, an angle, or a purpose.
The machine generates the output, but the human provides the context. And this brings us right back to the core argument Reed Hastings was making.
About the messy stuff.
Yeah. He suggests that because AI will handle the rigid rules-based technical tasks, humans need to frantically double down on what is inherently difficult for computers to replicate.
Right.
He specifically calls out emotional skills, the ability to read people, and the capacity to navigate complex group dynamics.
Yeah.
As the article states, he's talking about the messy, human, and complex elements of life.
Yes, and Hastings actually gave a specific practical prescription for this. He didn't just wave his hands and say, go read some books.
No, he was very specific.
He suggested a specific rotation back to the humanities that combines history and literature with the physiology of the brain and an understanding of how we interact with each other.
This is a fascinating combination.
He said if he had a 3-year-old today, he would be doubling down on those emotional skills because that is the only territory the machines can't easily conquer.
This really forces us to redefine what we consider valuable knowledge. For a long time, we essentially treated human workers like they were broken, inefficient machines.
We really did. We trained them to memorize syntax and process rigid logic.
But we are finally realizing that machines are infinitely better at being machines than we are. AI doesn't have a messy, emotional, complex life.
It doesn't understand historical grievances.
It doesn't grasp nuanced cultural taboos, and it certainly doesn't understand irrational human desires. A liberal arts education, whether it's diving into the French Revolution or parsing the motivations of a character in a novel, is essentially a deep dive into the messy reality of the human condition.
It trains theory of mind.
Yes, it trains theory of mind.
I love that phrase, training theory of mind. When you read a complex novel, you are literally forcing your brain to simulate the emotional state of another human being. You can't code that into a spreadsheet.
No, you can't.
But look, this all sounds incredibly poetic and philosophically satisfying. I love the idea of an economy based on human intuition and empathy. But I want to pivot to the harsh reality facing you, the listener, right now.
A practicality check.
Exactly, because billionaires like Reed Hastings and Mark Cuban do not have to worry about student loans. They aren't stressed about making rent next month.
Right, telling a kid to go study philosophy sounds great when you have a trust fund.
Right. But honestly, does this philosophy actually pay the bills? Are hiring managers down in the trenches actually writing checks for this? Or are kids graduating with English degrees still ending up as baristas while the rich guys share opinions on podcasts?
That is the crucial practicality check. College costs are astronomical right now. You simply cannot afford to make a multi-year, multi-thousand-dollar bet on a major just because a tech founder mused about it online.
You need proof of return on investment.
You do. However, the source material provides some very compelling, concrete data points showing that this isn't just theoretical anymore.
Oh.
The hiring reality on the ground is rapidly beginning to reflect this billionaire philosophy.
Okay, let's hear the proof, because I really need to see the receipts on this.
According to LinkedIn's hiring data, looking at job postings from 2025, there is one specific skill that has more than doubled in mentions.
And what is it?
It is arguably the most liberal, artsy skill you can possibly imagine: storytelling. The corporate demand for storytelling has absolutely exploded.
Storytelling. Okay, but I want to look closely at where this demand is coming from, because it's a notoriously rough job market right now for traditional media roles.
Oh, absolutely.
Journalists, screenwriters, people working at legacy media companies are facing massive headwinds. So who is hiring the storytellers?
That's the fascinating part. The demand isn't coming from legacy media. Reporting from both Business Insider and the Wall Street Journal reveals a massive boom in hiring for communications, writing, and storytelling roles, specifically at technology companies and other non-media corporations.
Wait, really? Tech companies?
Yes. The places that used to only care about your GitHub repository are suddenly desperate for writers.
Wait a minute, I have to push back on this hard, because frankly, this doesn't make economic sense on the surface. Isn't storytelling exactly what AI text generators are supposed to do instantaneously?
Well, yes and no.
Because you can open ChatGPT right now, type in, "Tell me an engaging story about our new B2B software product," and it spits out a perfectly grammatically correct structured narrative in 3 seconds.
It does.
If I'm a CFO looking at the budget, why on earth would I approve a massive salary for a human being to do something that an artificial intelligence literally does for $20 a month?
Because of the psychological phenomenon known as AI slop.
AI slop.
Yes, that is the exact paradox Gab Faria addresses in the article. She is the founder of Off the Record, a prominent community for communications professionals.
Okay.
She explains to Business Insider's Amanda Hoover that AI text generators have created a massive unintended consequence for the corporate world. Basically, a tsunami of perfectly punctuated garbage.
AI slop. That is such a visceral phrase, and it instantly makes sense.
It perfectly describes the current digital environment. Because AI can generate text endlessly and for almost zero cost, the internet is rapidly filling up with synthetic, generic content.
It lacks soul.
It lacks genuine perspective, and most importantly, it lacks stakes. When an AI writes a corporate blog post or a sales email, it doesn't actually care if the product succeeds.
It can't feel embarrassment or passion.
Right. And human brains are incredibly highly evolved to detect authenticity. When we read a sanitized, AI-generated corporate message, our eyes just glaze over. It falls into this uncanny valley of text.
Let's use an analogy here to really picture what is happening to the internet.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine the digital world is a city, and suddenly, overnight, every single restaurant in the city starts serving a chemically perfect, nutritionally balanced, but completely flavorless nutrient paste.
And the paste is completely free.
Exactly. At first, everyone thinks it's a miracle, free food. But after a month of eating flavorless gray paste, you are absolutely desperate for something real.
The paste keeps you alive, but nobody enjoys it, and nobody goes out of their way to consume it.
Right.
And suddenly, the one chef in the city who is still cooking with actual imperfect spices, the chef who burns the edges slightly but makes something with real flavor, that chef can charge whatever they want.
Because there is so much of this automated garbage flooding every channel, companies are finding that their messages are getting completely lost.
Faree notes that businesses are now willing to pay a massive premium for a human being who can confidently claim that they can act as that chef, someone who can cut through the noise.
It's the most basic law of supply and demand playing out in real time. When generic, grammatically correct content becomes infinite and free, its economic value drops to absolutely zero.
Precisely.
But the ability to genuinely capture human attention, to curate, to empathize, to synthesize complex ideas into a narrative that another human being actually cares about, that becomes incredibly scarce and, therefore, incredibly valuable.
Exactly. When the data is just being spit out for you, as Mark Cuban noted, the differentiator isn't the data itself, it's the perspective you apply to it.
Yeah.
A machine can write and send 1,000 perfectly formatted sales emails in a minute, but they will get 0 replies because they feel like slop.
It takes a human with high emotional intelligence, a deep understanding of human psychology, and the ability to weave a compelling narrative to write the one email that actually convinces a client to sign a multi-million-dollar contract.
And this is where the ultimate payoff comes in. This is the absolute proof that this isn't just a trendy theory floating around Silicon Valley.
Hit me for the numbers.
Amanda Hoover's article in Business Insider didn't just talk about abstract demand. She brought the receipts. She highlighted a long list of open storytelling roles at these tech companies that are commanding salaries of $200,000 plus.
200 grand for storytelling. That is the kind of salary that, for the last 20 years, used to be strictly reserved for senior software engineers and data scientists.
That massive financial premium is the market's way of validating everything we've been discussing. It proves that the human premium is real and measurable.
Wow.
When technology can completely automate the predictable, rules-based tasks, the unpredictable, messy, complex human traits become the primary driver of economic value. A company isn't paying $200,000 for someone to type words.
They are paying $200,000 for the empathy and intuition required to make a customer actually care about those words.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? If you were listening to this feeling anxious about the future, looking at the rapidly shifting sands of the job market, the reality is that just about every career path feels incredibly risky right now.
It really does.
The source material notes that unless you are in the manual trades, which might be the one true safe exception because AI cannot currently fix your plumbing, rewire your kitchen, or build a brick wall, everything in the knowledge economy is up in the air.
But the critical takeaway from all these sources is that the old safe bet is no longer safe. Computer science and STEM degrees, which felt like guaranteed tickets to stability and wealth for decades, are suddenly looking incredibly vulnerable to disruption.
The ground is shifting under the feet of the very people who built the tech industry.
It is.
Which leads to our final verdict on this whole phenomenon. Reed Hastings and his fellow tech billionaires might actually be completely right. The people who built the machines are actively warning us that the machines are about to master the technical skills we used to revere.
So maybe those good old-fashioned liberal arts degrees, philosophy, history, literature subjects that force you to grapple with the human condition deserve a serious second look.
Because human intuition, emotional intelligence, and genuine connection are turning out to be the ultimate premium skills in a highly synthetic world.
The historical irony here is just profound. By advancing technology to its current staggering heights, the tech industry has inadvertently made the study of the humanities more economically relevant and vital than it has been in a century.
It's amazing.
We automated the math, so all that's left is the meaning.
We automated the math, so all that's left is the meaning. I mean, that is perfectly stated. It really makes you rethink the entire concept of what a useful education actually looks like.
It absolutely does.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own. We've established today that the tech world is currently placing a $200,000 premium on human messiness, on storytelling, and on intuition simply because AI lacks it.
Right.
But, how long will it be until those exact same tech companies, with their billions of dollars in research, start explicitly training their AI models to mimic that exact liberal arts messiness? In a world where artificial intelligence inevitably learns how to perfectly fake the human touch, where does the human advantage hide next?